Level 1, the recruit. I am 19. I didn't just stumble into this life, I applied 3 times. I failed the fitness test the first 2 times. The third time, I barely passed. A letter arrived from the Los Angeles Police Department. It told me to report to the academy. Monday, 5 o'clock hours. There was no negotiation and no delay. The academy is located in a converted warehouse on the city's eastern edge. We started with 40 recruits. 2 weeks in, 8 of them were already gone. They weren't fired, they simply quit. I completely understand why. My days begin and end in the dark. I run 6 miles before breakfast. I do push-ups until my arms forget what it feels like to be straight. Then come the classroom hours covering law, procedure, use of force, and doctrine. My instructor, Sergeant Gaza, has a habit of standing right behind me when I least expect it. He never shouts. That is the part that really unsettles me. He just waits there in silence until my hands stop trembling. One morning, a recruit named Whitfield talked back during a drill. It wasn't anything dramatic, just 3 words, "That's not fair." Gaza didn't even blink. He just said, "Drop." Whitfield dropped, and the rest of us had to drop with him. Whitfield was gone by that Friday. I said absolutely nothing for the next 6 weeks. I learned what that silence cost me. I also learned what it saved. By graduation, only 23 of us remained. I was finally handed a badge. It felt much heavier than I expected. Level 2, the patrol officer. I am 21, with 2 years of patrol under my belt. This experience is mandatory before SWAT will even consider looking at me. My beat is East Compton, working mostly night shifts. I ride with a veteran named Delocqua, a 15-year pro with a habit of eating cold tamales at 3 a.m. He never rushes. I asked him once why he moves so slowly when a call comes in. He told me that the ones who sprint toward every call either burn out or get hurt. I have to pace myself, or this job will eat me alive. I responded to a domestic call in an apartment complex off Wilmington Avenue on the 3rd floor. I knocked. The door opened 6 inches with the chain still on. A woman stared at me through that narrow gap. Her eye was swollen shut. She told me everything was fine. I wrote the report exactly as it happened. I documented her injury and her words. The report went nowhere. I ended up writing another one 2 months later. It was the same address. I learned that the law and justice are 2 separate roads that only sometimes cross. At the end of my 2nd year, I submitted my SWAT application. Delocqua signed my recommendation letter without me even asking. He told me I'll be good at it. He said it's because I don't panic. That matters more than anything else. Level 3, the SWAT candidate. I am 23. SWAT selection lasts 5 days. They call it assessment week. I called it something else by day 3. It began with a timed obstacle course at 0430 before the sun was even up. Then came shooting qualifications, 80 rounds, moving targets, and low light. Then a written psychological evaluation. Then I faced a panel interview with 4 senior operators asking questions with no right answer. In one scenario, I breach a room, my partner goes down, and the suspect is still armed. I have exactly 2 seconds. They watched my eyes while I gave my answer. On day 4, they ran me through a simulated hostage scenario in a decommissioned school in Gardena. My team had to extract a civilian while a role player acted as an armed and erratic suspect. Everything that could go wrong did. The civilian screamed, the lights cut out, and radio communication dropped. Afterward, a senior operator named Olai debriefed each of us individually. He told me I hesitated at the threshold and asked why. I told him the truth, I didn't know if my partner had a clean angle. He wrote something down but didn't tell me what it was. Out of 62 candidates, only 11 were selected. I was one of them. I didn't celebrate. Something about that week told me that was actually the easy part. Level 4, the probationary operator. I am 24, with 18 months of probation ahead of me. I am on the team, but I am not truly of the team yet. LAPD's Metropolitan Division D platoon operates differently than people imagine. There are no movie moments here. There is only repetition. I drill the same entry pattern 400 times until my body moves without my brain's permission. I train in abandoned buildings, parking structures, and shipping containers. I drill close quarters combat with Sergeant Reyes, a former Army Ranger with nothing left to prove. My first live call-out was a barricade situation. A man with a rifle locked himself in a motel room in Venice. I was positioned at the east corner of the building. I held that position for 4 hours. Eventually, the negotiator talked him out. I never fired a single round. Some of the newer guys were visibly disappointed, but I wasn't. Olai told me during selection that a SWAT call-out where nothing happens is a perfect call-out. I am starting to understand what he meant. By month 14, they stopped watching me so closely. By month 18, my probation officially ended. Nobody made a speech, Reyes just nodded at me across the briefing room. That was enough for me. Level 5, full operator. I am 26. I am now a full SWAT operator. I have been on 31 call-outs and fired my weapon in the field twice. The work is not what television makes it out to be. Between call-outs, there are thousands of hours of training. I've done rope descents, explosive breaching, hostage rescues, and underwater searches. I've trained in night vision and medical skills like tourniquets and chest seals. I have become fluent in all of it. There was a call-out in Boyle Heights for an active shooter at an elementary school. The call came at 11:14 a.m., and I was in the van before the briefing even finished. My team moved through a side entrance in under 90 seconds. The building was already evacuated. The shooter had barricaded himself in a supply closet off the gym. I held the corridor. The negotiator worked for 40 minutes until the door finally opened. Hands came out first. In the debrief, nobody talked about how they felt. That just isn't the culture. Instead, I talked about angles, communication gaps, and stacking order. We focused on what worked and what didn't. On the drive back, my partner Torres simply said, "Good day." That was the whole debrief. I understand now that the weight of this job doesn't live in the call-outs. It lives in the nights between them, when my mind replays the hallways and counts the seconds. Level 6, the sniper. I am 29. I was tapped for sniper school. Not everyone is asked, and I didn't ask why I was. The school lasts 8 weeks at a facility in the Mojave. The instruction is precise, methodical, and completely humbling. I spent the first 2 weeks learning how to do absolutely nothing. I learned how to hold a position in the sun without moving, coughing, or shifting my weight. A sniper's first discipline is stillness. My spotter is a woman named Kwan who has a surgical calm that makes me feel perpetually behind. She doesn't waste words, communicating in half sentences that I have to learn to complete. The legal standard for a sniper shot is exact, imminent threat, no alternative, and clear ID. I memorized this as a weight, not just a policy. Every training scenario ends with a decision to fire or not to fire. The debrief is always about explaining my reasoning to people paid to find holes in it. My first field deployment as a sniper was a kidnapping case in Encino. I was positioned on a rooftop across from a warehouse for 7 hours. The suspect released the hostage without a shot being fired. I packed my rifle and climbed down. Kwan said, "Good day." I am starting to recognize what a good day really means. Level 7, the team leader. I am 33. I am now responsible for 6 other operators. That changes something fundamental. Before, I only had to trust my own training, now I have to trust and shape theirs. I run the morning drills and review every operator's qualification scores. I study their strengths and, more carefully, their gaps. I have a newer operator named Paxton who is technically sharp but makes decisions too fast. He moves before he has all the information. I pulled him aside and told him that while speed is useful, accuracy is better. The two are not the same thing. He listened, and I watched him slow down over the next 4 months. My first major call-out as team leader was a bank robbery turned hostage situation downtown. 3 armed suspects, 11 hostages, and a building with 17 entry points. Command gave me 20 minutes to prepare a plan, and I used 18 of them. The execution took 4 minutes. All 11 hostages walked out, and 2 suspects surrendered. In the after-action report, I gave all the credit to my team. I documented every name, every position, and every correct decision. Command asked why I didn't take credit for the breach call. I told them it was because I made 2 mistakes that my team covered for. That is exactly what I wanted on the report. Level 8, the negotiator. I am 37. They sent me to the FBI's crisis negotiation training in Quantico. I expected tactics, but I found something closer to philosophy. The lead instructor, Brandt, opened the first session by asking what a person in crisis wants most. People answered, to be heard, to be safe, or to survive. Brandt told us they just want to matter, everything else is negotiable. I carried that sentence with me for the rest of my career. Back in the field, my role shifted to being the voice on the phone when the door is closed. A call came in on a Tuesday in February about a man named Gerald barricaded in Silver Lake. His wife had left and his job had ended. He said there was no reason to come out. I stayed on the line with him for 3 hours and 40 minutes. I didn't make empty promises, I didn't threaten, and I didn't rush. I just asked questions and really listened to the pauses between his answers. At 11:52 p.m., the door finally opened. Gerald sat on the step, put his face in his hands, and cried. I sat beside him on the concrete and said nothing. Some wins don't make the news, but they often cost the most. Level 9, the commander. I am 43, and I command the unit now. I have 41 operators, a budget, and the weight of every decision made in my name. The job is mostly invisible now. I don't breach doors, I approve budgets and review reports. I sit in briefings with officials who want SWAT available for everything but accountable for anything. A high-profile call-out in Hollywood went badly. A suspect was shot during a breach. The shooting was legally justified and protocol was followed exactly. However, bystander footage captured 15 seconds without context and hit the news within the hour. I held a press conference that afternoon. I was precise, calm, and honest. I didn't use words like unfortunate or phrases like the system worked. I simply said a man was shot. I stated that we owed the family and the community a full accounting. My supervisor told me afterward that I was too direct, but he admitted I was accurate. I insisted that the full review cleared the operator. The community's trust took 2 years to partially restore. I learned that the hardest part of this job isn't the call-outs, it's what I owe the city after them. Now, every decision I make is documented and made in the open. Accountability isn't a constraint to me, it's what keeps this unit what it should be. Level 10, the end of the line. I am 51. I am sitting in a folding chair in a gymnasium in Englewood. It is my retirement ceremony. The room is full of people I've worked with for over 2 decades. Some are even younger than my own service record. Someone reads a long list of my operations and lives protected. The numbers are large, but they still feel incomplete to me. They don't include the quiet conversations in the dark or the incidents that never happened. Sergeant Reyes is in the back of the room. He retired 8 years before me and drove 3 hours to be here. He doesn't say much, but his handshake and nod mean more than all the speeches. I drive home alone that night. I think about Whitfield, who quit in week 2, and I wonder if he found something better. I think about Gerald in Silver Lake and hope his ending was better than where he started. I think about the operator Estrada and telling her that her training was correct. I think about Delocqua and his cold tamales at 3 a.m. I spent 32 years learning when to act and when to trust that doing nothing was enough. Nobody told me it would end this quietly. But I understand now that quiet was always the goal. I never needed the noise to know the work was real.